Alright, so I'm going to be showing how to replace the screen on an iPhone 7. So first thing you're going to want to do, if you can, is to turn off the phone. But if you can't, then we'll just have to just go ahead and do it without doing that. Anyways, you're going to need a pentalobe P2 or 0.8 to remove the bottom screws. So just remove the two screws here. I already took them out, but basically they're right next to the charger. Just, of course, twist them backwards and then pull them out. All right. After that, we're going to have to take the cover out. There's only those two screws. Okay, so what you do, you want a thin pry tool. Some people use a suction cup, but the cracks make it very difficult for a suction cup to work, so most of the time that doesn't work. But anyways, you get the thin pry tool in there. Once you get it in that gap, then you can slowly go and pry it around. You want to be very careful not to stick the tool too far, because if you stick the tool too far, you can actually damage some cabling in there. And on these, the home button, if you break that, you'll never get the fingerprint reader back. So you want to be careful. Sometimes these cracks actually, it breaks the fingerprint reader. So you want to be careful. If the fingerprint reader breaks, there are aftermarket fingerprint, not fingerprint readers, but home buttons, so that you can at least get the home button clicking function back. But yeah. Anyways, slide the tool along the sides, kind of lifting up the screen slightly. Okay. And then after you get it lifted slightly, you can get in and pull that. And then if it's not coming out, you can kind of slide your fingernail or the pry tool along there as you're kind of pulling the screen up. And then you want to be careful because there are the cables on the right hand side of the screen. If you look at it, you can actually see there's a black ribbon cable there. So what you're gonna have to do, I have to be careful because the phone keeps turning itself on and I don't want to show any personal information on this. But what you do is, while you're pulling this, you kind of like wiggle the screen down. Okay, you want to be careful because it's very difficult to get this top piece out. Okay, you might have to try and slide the tool along there. All right, and then while you're kind of wiggling this and pulling it down, okay, you want to be careful because if you pull it too quickly, you can actually rip the screen cables. Though we are replacing the screen, so that's not too important. But the other cables towards the top, which I'll show you soon. Okay, it's coming out just like this. All right. So now that you got this open, it's going to actually lay to the side. You do have to pull this side up slightly as well. Okay, just like that. And then just open it up like a book like this. All right, and then you're gonna have to peel off all this old adhesive. If you leave it here, the lumpiness can actually cause the new screen to break easier. Okay, so first thing you want to do is remove all the screws in here on this, holding this metal plate down, and this is using the tri-wing. Okay, so we're gonna have to switch to the tri-wing screwdriver. Oops, not that. So we're gonna switch to the Y000. All right, and then we're going to remove all these screws here. Okay, so there's one. And keep these screws all in order because they are all different sizes, shapes, and lengths. You don't want to get them mixed up. If you get them mixed up, you can actually damage your phone or the screws won't hold properly. So you want to make sure to get the right screws in place. Okay, all right, so do that. All right, there we go. Okay, so the way I keep track of the screws, I put them in the pattern that I remove them. So as you can see, there's like 2 down and then there's 2 along the side. So I just put them in that pattern, and that way it's easy to keep track of how to put them back. Alright, then you gotta pry up this metal plate. You can use a plastic pry tool. Don't use metal stuff in here because you could easily damage things inside. And then just set this aside. Make sure you put it the way that you have to put it back. You don't want to flip it upside down or anything. Alright, so you got the battery connector right here. So I just use my fingernail and pop this up. Okay, just like that. Again, you want to use plastic tools. If you don't have fingernails and you can't do it, then yeah, you want to use some plastic tools. Okay, after you remove the battery, press and hold the power button. Do this for about 10 to 15 seconds. This will drain any power that's on the board, so it reduces the risk of damaging anything if you do happen to touch something metal or drop a screw in there or something. Okay, all right, so that should be good. Okay, now that we got that, we're going to disconnect these cables, and we also have to remove that. So this one connector for the all the sensors on the front, the camera, the microphone, or the I don't know if there's a microphone in there, the speaker, and the other sensors like the light sensors and things like that. We're gonna have to remove this so that we can disconnect that. All right, so there's two. These are JIS or PH. Are these 00, 000, 00? Okay, so you want to remove that. So this is using a PH 00 or JIS 00 screwdriver. You might be able to do it with a PH 0 or JIS 0, but you want to be very careful, because if the screwdriver skips out of the screw and you strip that, then you're going to be stuck with that in there. Okay, so just remove this. Oh, just remove that metal plate. Okay, now we're going to disconnect all these. So again, using your fingernail or a plastic tool, just get underneath a little edge of it. All right, just barely under, and then you just pop it up just like that. Same thing with that one. Get underneath and then pop it up. All right, same thing with this one, underneath the little edge. Okay, hopefully you can see. It's kind of dark, so it's hard to see, but hopefully you're able to tell what I'm doing. This one's a little bit tricky to get out, but just get underneath, and there we go. Okay, so now that we got those, there's only these three connectors. Then you can peel this screen away. Again, you're gonna want to remove all this adhesive. You don't want to leave it attached, so try and get it up as good as you can. It helps to kind of pull slowly, and then the adhesive kind of just stretches and comes off. Okay, but sometimes it'll get all torn up, and then you kind of have to work it out. Okay, so let's see here. I got all the adhesive off that side. Okay, all the adhesive off the top. There's like little bits of residue here that you might want to clean up, just so it's not making the screen sit uneven. Okay. All right, there's a little bit, oops, sorry, I'm going off camera, but there's a little bit more here. Okay, you want to peel that up as well, just like this. Okay. All right, and also when this adhesive gets old, it gets really gunky and gross. So depending on how old or how you treated your phone, this adhesive might be really difficult to take out. It might be really gooey and sticky. So just keep that in mind. It might not be as easy to peel up as this. Okay, even this is kind of being a little bit of a pain. It keeps tearing. Okay. And there's also quite a bit of dust in here. The customer told me that they actually were using it with the broken screen for a long time, and then it appears to have stopped working after some liquid or something got spilled into it. So I'm probably going to need to get a little brush or something to clean this up. Let's see here. Okay, so we got all the adhesive out. Let me see if I have a brush. I'll be back with a brush to clean this out. Okay, I'm back. So to clean it out, you can just use any regular toothbrush, and then I'm gonna hold this over my trash can because I don't want the dust all in my office. But I'm basically just gonna use the toothbrush and brush the inside. You want to be careful. If you don't know what you're doing, you probably don't want to do this because you can actually damage some cables and stuff inside. So I don't know if you saw the brown dust that was in here earlier. I just brushed that out. Okay. There's also like dust on the battery itself. All right, so that should be good. Clean that all out. Okay, so now we're going to get the replacement screen, and we're gonna have to transfer over all the components that are missing. Okay, so the replacement screen, depending how you have it, some will come with the metal plate transferred over. This one doesn't have that, or it'll come with the metal plate already on it. Okay, so what we're going to do is peel this off. All right, you want to be careful because there's this adhesive and stuff all over it. Okay, when you peel this adhesive off, you have to be very careful. I like to hold down the connector and then try and peel it so that it goes straight back. Like right now, if I were to peel this, it's going to pull, kind of like tear the thing. So what I'm going to do is I'll move this red one out of the way. Okay, and then what I do is I pull it straight back like this, okay, while I'm holding this cable down. And that should, keeping this cable flat should keep it from putting too much stress on this, okay? Then we just throw that away. We can peel this blue thing off as well. This is the adhesive for the replacement microphone. It holds the microphone in place so that it gets a decent seal. Okay, so we are going to have to swap over the home button here, this metal plate, and then all these little pieces up here. So it looks like all the pieces up here are using pH 00s, and then the sides, and then this is all using the, what do you call it, the Y 000. Okay, so we're going to remove all these screws here. Right. Again, make sure to keep them in the pattern that you take them out so that you can put them back in the same spot. You don't want to mix up these screws. They are different sizes, shapes, lengths, and you can damage stuff by putting the wrong screws back. Okay, so I just lay them out in the desk in the way that I'm taking them out, and that way I could easily know where each screw goes and where it came from. Okay, just like that. Okay, just like this. Alright, so that metal plate will come out. This just holds all the components in place. Take that out. This camera will just lift up, but it's all attached underneath this speaker piece. So the speaker comes out, right? After you lift up the camera, just pull the speaker out just like this. It has these 4 little spring contacts, and that's how it gets connected to the board. Most of the time there's going to be dust caught in that, so I'm going to brush that off. Okay, just to make it nice and clean. So I don't know if you can see the difference because I probably didn't film it that well in the first place, but it does clean out a bunch of gunk that was on there. Alright, so to remove this piece, we're gonna, well actually, should I remove this first? I guess okay, we'll remove this first. So to remove this, I just have a little space heater thing here, and I just put that on the heater, okay? And I just leave it for a while until it's kind of hot to the touch, or warm to the touch. You don't want it to be too hot, so you kind of have to make sure that it's enough that you can kind of touch it without like burning yourself immediately. If you make it that hot, it's too hot. So usually what I do is I just heat it, warm it slowly, and then I'll take it out, try and peel it up. If it doesn't peel out easy enough, then I'll heat it up a little more. I've heard someone tell me that, not for this, but for like screens, they'll use those little hand warmers, and then like you can probably use that to warm it up and just leave it on there, because that doesn't go like boiling hot. It just gets really hot, like hot enough. So if you want, you can try using that. Okay. Alright, so let's see if we can peel it off, or if I'm going to have to heat it more. So underneath here, there's the little connectors for that speaker that I was talking about earlier. So I use a little needle to peel it up. I don't know what other people use. There are those little pointy picks and stuff that you can probably use, but I just use a needle. Alright, so it's still kind of difficult to get, so I'm going to let it heat up some more. Okay. And then I don't know what temperature is good for it, but some people get these little plates that it heats only to a specific temperature, and those could be a good way to do it without risk of damaging anything. But I just do it this with the little heater. Okay, just like that, and then I slowly scrape along the bottom of the little contacts to peel it up, just like that. Okay, I'm gonna peel off this junk. I don't need that. Okay, let it heat up a little more while I throw this away. Move these out of the way. Okay, the one part that sometimes is difficult to get out are these little sensors. So usually this one will come out okay, but the one underneath on the other side that's folded underneath, you kind of have to work it. So let's see here. Sometimes it's easier to just kind of rip the plastic thing out with it and then take that plastic off later. But let me see if I can get it or not. Okay, so I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of lifting there, and you kind of have to lift it like top and then bottom, top and then bottom. they do put a little bit of adhesive in there to make it like stuck. So you do kind of have to work it slowly and gently. Okay, so there we go. This piece did come out just like that. Alright, so I'm going to heat it up a little bit more. I don't know if you can see, but there's some adhesive that's kind of stringing out. Oops, I'm moving it the wrong way. Okay, so I'm going to let it heat some more. Again, with this, you can even use like a hair dryer or something, or a heat gun, but you want to heat it gradually and you don't want it way too hot. So as long as you can like touch it and it's not like completely burning your hand off, you're probably okay. If you heated it to where it's burning your hand, then you probably might have damaged something. Alright, so anyways, then you peel this up. Here you can see. So that's coming out. I'm going to lift the bottom connectors out. Okay. And then peel this up. This is a pretty like risky thing if you're not sure what you're doing, but just be careful, go slowly, and you should be able to do it. Okay, so there we go. Got the whole thing off. Here you can see there's this microphone adhesive is stuck on there. A lot of times I would actually peel that off since it has an adhesive. So if you can peel it off, but if it's like okay and if it's like perfectly intact, you can actually leave it on there. So this one is pretty good. I don't know if you can see it, but it's pretty good. It's flat and intact, so I'm gonna leave that on there. Sometimes it gets all like scraped up. Okay, so that's done. Now we just have to remove. Oh, it turned off pretty quick. Usually it takes a while to turn off. All right, and then we're gonna remove the. Oh, these little rubber things came off. So usually the screen, this part has these little rubber covers on them, but they all just fell off. I don't know where the other one is. It's missing. Oh, it's actually in there in the phone. So I'm going to transfer that over as well. You don't really need to transfer these over, but since I got them and they're, yeah, I'm just going to transfer them over. Okay. So we got that. We're going to transfer this little rubber piece over. Okay, so it just slides over the little screw holes. Okay. So most people, I think if you replace your phone screen, they're not going to even bother with these, but I'll do it just because. Alright, slide that over. Alright, so here you can see there's those little, I don't know if it's focusing, there's those little black rubber things on there. Yeah, it's not focusing well, but okay, whatever. Alright, so now we're going to remove these using the tri-wing or the Y000, and we're also going to want to remove the ones on the side. So let's remove the side ones because we're going to have to transfer this whole back plate over. Again, keep the screws in order. Okay. 2. I don't remember if this model they also glue this onto the cables. That one's a little bit annoying to remove. Okay, 3. I don't do iPhones as often as I do computer repairs, so I tend to forget. All the models kind of blend because they're very similar. Alright, so there's 6 of these Y000 screws, 3 on each side. Alright. There we go. Okay, so now we got all 6 of those. Now we're going to remove this home button screw. So usually I'll remove the home button screw first, and I have my finger on the bottom pushing the home button up because you don't want to push the home button through the phone. Okay, so you want to put pressure on the home button while you're trying to remove the home button screw. Okay, just like that. And then you can go ahead and remove the other screws that are around it. Okay. So there's only 4 screws along the bottom here. And if you notice, this metal plate goes on top of this back plate, so we have to put the back plate first onto the new screen. Okay, so this one we're gonna have to remove. It's a little bit tricky, so let me zoom in and see if I can show this. Okay, so this one connector here, you have to kind of lift it, and then there's the other end of the connector is at the bottom. So I use my other fingernail to kind of pull that down. So like this, and then it separates the two layers just like that. Okay, so that's very important. If you just try and lift it up and pull it out, you're most likely going to rip this cable off, which isn't that big of a deal because it's part of the screen and the newer screen will replace it. But the problem with that is if you break it, it's a lot harder to get that piece out while it's like just free floating. Okay, so I'm going to heat this up, and then I'm going to pull out the fingerprint sensor. So same thing, just heat it up for a bit. Okay, and I think the metal plate is glued to the connectors on this one, so it's going to be kind of a pain. But yeah. A lot of the new screens that you order or you buy, they'll come with the metal plate already attached, so it's holding this stuff already down. So this one is one I've had, I think, for a while maybe. Actually, it's not too old, but yeah. Okay. Alright. Okay, hopefully that's warm enough. So again, I'll get the needle. And then what I do is I'll go, you want to make sure that you're going, oh, let me try and zoom in and show this better. Might need to warm it a little bit more. Probably should have done that with the other piece as well. I didn't show that close of a view. Okay, so let's see if I can capture this on camera. It's kind of hard to see because it's so dark. But basically, you get the tip of the needle underneath. You want to make sure you're going underneath that piece, because if you scrape on top of it or if you puncture it, then you're going to lose your home button. So I have this needle. I don't know if you can see, but I bent it. So that way, once I get the needle under, I can use like the curve of that to scrape or to push underneath instead of using the sharp point of the needle. Okay, and this helps prevent any damage to the components. Just like this. Slowly pushing that out. All the broken glass is falling down. But anyways, once you get all the adhesive up, you can lift it, and then the home button falls through the phone, just like that. Okay, so we're gonna zoom back out. We're done with the heat. We don't need that anymore. Okay. And then we'll set the home button aside. You want to make sure that on the adhesive part you don't have any broken glass stuck to it, because if you put it back, it's gonna cause some problems if you put it back with broken glass. Okay, now I got broken glass all over my little working pad area, so I'm gonna have to dump that out. But now we can lift this metal plate up, okay, just like this. As you can see, there's an adhesive holding this down. You don't really need to worry about damaging the cables because the screen's broken anyways. You're not going to be reusing it. Okay, so what you do is you get underneath here, so you can lift the whole thing up if you want first. Just find a place to grab underneath. Okay, and then hold up this side where the screw is, and then push the cables down while you're kind of pulling on this. Okay, just like this. And that's how you can peel it off. Just like that. Okay. There we go. So now we got this out. If it is bent, you can kind of just bend it back a little bit. All right. I like to muddy up this adhesive because that adhesive isn't really needed for anything. It's just there to kind of cause a headache. All right. So we're going to put this cable back, or the old screen in this, so that we can throw it away. Okay. Again, I like to muddy this stuff up so it's not too sticky, because otherwise when you put the new screen, it's kind of a hassle. Alright, so I'm going to dump the broken glass off this. Okay. Okay, I have to be careful because I put a sticky pad underneath. I don't want to fling all this glass into my face. Okay. Alright, there we go. Take the glass off. Okay. Alright, so I'm just going to put this back. Let's zoom back out. I'm gonna try and make sure I have that centered again. Okay, just like that. All right, so now that we got that metal plate off, we're gonna have to put that first. So the only thing that's weird with that is you see these cables, if you don't have them lined up the first time, then it's kind of annoying if you have this adhesive. That's why I kind of like to make the adhesive not so sticky. But what you do is you grab the screen so that it's further down than the cables. That way when you pull it up, the stickiness will help keep the cables, pull the cables more flat, okay? But you want to be careful, because if it's too sticky and then you do that, you're going to rip the cables. So just know, be careful with that, okay? So there we go. Now that I got that, I'm going to put in the 6 screws on the sides here. Oops, I don't need the needle anymore. Right? So I'll put the 6 screws on the side here first. These can be a little tricky just because they're so tiny. Okay. Alright. Get the second screw like that. Third screw. Okay. Right now I'm just putting the screws in loosely. I don't like to tighten the screws if it's like if multiple screws are holding the same part in place. I always like to put it in loosely so that way I can make adjustments and move the part around if it's not aligned properly. Okay. Alright. Alright, so now we got those 6 screws in. Okay, they are loose though, because I do have to adjust this for when I put this fingerprint sensor back in. So the new screens will have this plastic adhesive on the front. Usually I'll push that out, okay, just like that, because I have to slot the home button in from the bottom. So you get the home button in through the bottom like this, right? And then make sure it's lined up right. The way you make sure it's lined up is there's a little hole in that connector. You want to line it up with the little thing that's sticking out from the screen, the new screen. Oops. And oh, that's one thing. Make sure that the connector is on top. So this one connector that's part of the screen, you have to lift it up and move it out of the way. Kind of annoying. Alright, but do it like that. Alright. And then make sure that connector ends up on top. I don't know why Apple did it that way. They could have easily made this the one that the home button one be the one that pushes on top. That's just a short cable instead of having it go underneath and then flipping over. That's kind of weird. Alright, there we go. Now that you make sure that little hole lines up with that thing that's sticking up. Okay, make sure that the home button is flush. Just move your finger over it. Make sure it feels nice and flush, and then you can put that over the adhesive thingy or the screen protector over to hold it in place. Then usually I'd have to like shove this over to the top, like I use my fingernail and push it over, and then I'll put that down and clip that in place. Okay, just like that. So there we go. Now we will put the screws back for this. Okay, and just like in reverse, or not completely in reverse, but you can do it basically in reverse, is you put these screws before you put the screw for the home button. Okay, so put the screws on the outside first. Just like that. Okay, and then make sure the screws are all tightened. Alright. Okay, and then just like before, you want to put pressure on the back of the home button, or on the home button itself, while you're putting that screw in. So my finger's underneath pushing on it while I kind of put this screw in. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now we got all those screws in. We can tighten down the screws on the side. I like to squeeze the 2 layers together because sometimes it will pop up. Right, especially because the cable's like folded under there. Okay, and then just tighten in all these screws. just like that. Flip it over. Same thing. Tighten those screws. All right. There we go. Now we're going to put back this sensor. All the sensors. So on here, there's the speaker, and then there's like a light sensor, proximity sensor, I think, and then the camera itself. So what I do is I line up the two little holes on the speaker connector. I don't know if you can see, it's not focusing. So on there, there's two holes next to those gold contacts for the speaker, and I'll line that up first. I don't know if I'll be able to capture that on camera because I'm looking at what I'm doing and I'm not paying attention to the camera. But get those in. Okay, once you got those lined up, then you want to line up these little sensors up here. So it's kind of a little tricky. You kind of have to just move it around. Sometimes you get lucky and it drops in, like now it just dropped in. Sometimes the little connector, the one that had some adhesive holding it in place, is a little tricky, and then I have to use like a needle to kind of work it back and forth to get it to fall in. All right, so once you get that, lift up the camera. Make sure not to touch the camera lens itself, otherwise it will get permanently dirty. I don't know if you'll be able to clean it off well enough, but there you go. Get the speaker in place, make sure it lines up and falls into that rubber gasket, and then hold the camera down. While you're holding the camera and the speaker down, get the metal plate, put that back on top. Okay, and hold these pieces in place just like that. There we go. Okay, now we're going to have to switch to the PH00 or JAS00, whichever you have, both should work. Alright, and then we're going to get the screws and put those back in. Okay, so put one in that top corner. Again, I like to put it loosely at first, and then I'm going to get another one for the metal. So usually I like to put the metal ones first so I can stop holding everything down. Alright, there we go, and then I can put the rest of the screws in. Okay, again, I like to put them loosely first, and just so that way I can adjust it if anything needs to be adjusted. Let me zoom in a little more, sorry. Alright, this one screw's not really holding anything up here. It holds like a little rubber gasket thing. But there we go. Now we can actually tighten the screws. Oh, I put the wrong screw. Whoops. Okay, so good thing. That's another thing with not over tightening it the first time, is if you put a screw that's too short or long, you can actually get it back out before you cause damage, okay? So this screw is actually longer and it's supposed to go over the speaker one. I accidentally put it into this one. Luckily I didn't tighten it down. If you tightened it all the way down, it can actually push through and damage the glass. So there we go. Okay. Let's tighten all the screws in place now. There we go. Okay, so now we got all the screws in, we got them all tightened down. Now we're gonna have to reconnect everything to the phone. This part is a little bit tricky, especially this upper one, because the way it kind of curves here. I don't know why Apple did it this way. I don't know if they were just trying to make it more difficult. I don't know if I'll even be able to film this because of the way I can't hold it with up and do this at the same time. But what I like to do is kind of push this down. It helps sometimes to use like a little tool to do it because the fingers are kind of big. So it helps to kind of use, you can use like a little plastic tool. But basically you would get this and then you have to kind of push it down. You want to be very careful if you're doing what I'm doing with a screwdriver because you don't want to short anything in there. We did disconnect the battery, so it shouldn't be a problem, but you still want to be very careful, okay? I don't know if you can see, but you have to like get it aligned properly. This is the most annoying part. Sometimes it helps to kind of angle the screen weird or something, because when you push this down, it kind of makes the thing go in a weird direction. So there we go, it's kind of staying in place. Then I know it's good. All right, then I use my finger and I push it so that I can feel it click. I heard it click in place, so it should be good. Then you kind of lift this up, get these two connectors in. All right, so hard to line up these. There we go. And then just snap it down. All right. You want to make sure that these are lined up properly, because if you don't, so the way you know it's lined up is it stays in place a little bit. It doesn't move around, and then you can kind of push it in. But this one, oh, it didn't go right. So do that. All right. And then push the connectors down. All right. And then push the battery connector and we can test it. Okay, so now let's see, make sure it powers on. I'm just going to see if the Apple turns on. I don't want to actually keep the phone on. There you go, the Apple's good. So it should be good. After you do this, you want to test the home button, test the speaker here, test the camera and all of those. But yeah. All right, so now we're going to have to put back the rest of the screws. And also, you want to check here, this one piece here that bulges out. If it's not lined up right, it'll be trapped between here or on the cable, and then that will actually pinch and put pressure on the back of the screen. So you want to be very careful with that. If you don't have it lined up right, then it can damage the screen. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is actually disconnect the battery again, and then I'm going to hold the power button just to drain any power. So that way when I put these back, if there's an accident, if I drop anything, it's not going to damage anything. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to the Y000 screwdriver. Okay, and then we're going to put back these metal plates here. Okay, so this one, hopefully I didn't flip it over. Okay, that looks right, is it? I have to make sure I put it right because I dropped it and then it flipped over. So I think it goes this way. Let me make sure. Yep. Okay, I think it might be. Let's see if I flip it upside down. Will it fit? It won't fit this way, right? Nope. Okay, so the way you know it goes the right way is the long one. Long side goes this way, then it has this protruding, and then the short side on this side. Okay, so now we'll grab the screw. Oops, I think this is actually using the Phillips screw. Okay, so let me switch back to the PH00. Alright. Grab the screw. Alright. Lightly tighten it. Alright, now grab the other screw. If your screwdriver isn't magnetic, you can get a strong magnet and just rub the tip of your screwdriver on it, and that'll actually magnetize it, because I couldn't imagine doing this kind of repair without a magnetic tip. Alright, anyways, now we got to push the battery connector back in because we're putting this metal plate back on. So be very careful now because there's power connected, and if you drop something in there, you can damage your phone. Okay. Alright, so grab the screw. Alright. Oh, I forgot. This is using the Y000. Switch back to the Y000. That's why it wasn't going on right. There we go. Alright. And again, I like to put the screw in loosely since there's 4 screws that need to go in before I tighten it down. Okay, and then I also like to twist it backwards slightly to make sure that it's going into the hole properly. Okay. Usually you'll hear it click when you twist it backwards. That's how you know that it's going in the right way. Okay, just like that. And then tighten all the screws down. Just like that. Okay, so now we're good to go. So to put the screen back in, let me zoom back out some. Okay, just like before, you want to put the upper side in. You have to hold this, oops, sorry, it's wiggling too much. So you have to hold this up at an angle, and then you have to slide it up into there, okay? You can't just smash it down, otherwise the little clip mechanisms that hook underneath, they won't go in. Okay, so I'm going to peel this, actually I'll leave that on for now. And then what you want to do is after you got the top in, you want to go to the bottom half, get that in, and then work your way up. So the reason you do that is because when you do it, it's bowed up like this, and then when when you push it, it'll spread it up like this. If you try and push the middle first, then this will already be extended out, and there's usually the bottom lip will kind of be hard to get back in. Okay, so there we go. It should be good to go. Now I just got to put back, see, the Apple logo's there. Now we just got to put back the last bottom screws. What did I do with that bit? Threw it somewhere. Oh, there we go. Okay. So now we just got to put back the pentalobe screws. Okay. Alright, and we are good to go. Alright, so hopefully this video helped you guys. If it did, like and subscribe, help others find my channel. I know this is an older model, so it's not as popular. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!